To get the night started, we will start by having a conversation with our Cambridge Network Director of Program Operations, Shasha Song. Before I have her introduce herself, I would just like to honor Shasha. She does so much for Cambridge. She might not be the first person you come in contact with when you need support, but she is the support to the supporters. She is constantly challenging us to be better, to think smarter, and to care deeper for our students, hosts, and schools. It's exciting to have her here tonight to learn more about who she is, what she does, but also how she connects culturally in her own life as well. So welcome, Shasha. We're so happy to have you tonight.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Mariah, for having me here. And thank you so much for, those kind words. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
Yes, of course. Shasha, before we get started in some of our conversation questions, could you just share a little bit about yourself, maybe who you are, what your life like is now, so we can kind of get a grasp of where you're at in life and your experience?
Sure. So I was born in Zhejiang province in China. So a province, very close to Shanghai. And I grew up in Shanghai and, finished most of my studies in China. And after I graduated from college, I pursued a graduate program in the United States. I went to University of Southern California. So I stayed in Los Angeles for 2 years. And after that, I joined Cambridge Network. So yeah, 23 this year, I've been working with Cambridge almost for 10 years now.
Wow.
And I married, in America, and right now I have two children. I have a 5-year-old, my daughter Aria, and a 1-year-old Lucas.
Awesome. Well, our first question was, what is your experience with cultural exchange? And I feel like all of it. Your whole life is experience with cultural exchange. I am just curious, though, what your thought process and answer to that specific question is. What is your experience with cultural exchange? Is there anything that stood out to you for that?
Yeah, so I would like to share my first experience about cultural exchange. I would say when I was in 6th grade, I hosted a student from Japan. And it's my first time to get to know people from other country that closely. And at that time, with the limited English speaking skills. So in Shanghai, we learn English from 3rd grade. So I've been learning English for 2 years. And I guess, for that Japanese student, kind of the similar level. So when we were not able to communicate in English very well, we drew pictures. And I still remember that she shared with me that she wants to share that in China, we don't have, the seated toilets. And she just don't know how to describe that because she felt a little bit surprised. So she just drew those pictures and then I understood it. So it was very, memorable experience. And I also got a chance to visit Japan after 2 years, and I lived with a Japanese family for a short period of time. So during that time, I got to know, their food, their greetings. People in Japan greet each other by bowing. A deeper, longer bow indicates respect. And I also learned things that I've only seen in Japanese cartoon. So the biggest impression, is how polite and respectful Japanese people are. So that's my kind of, first experience with cultural exchange. And it's very memorable to me.
That is so beautiful. I did not know that about you, that it was even before you got into your education career path. How did that affect you planning forward, like having that cultural connection at a younger age, from another perspective and culture? How did that kind of shape where you were headed towards choosing, because obviously you came over and had education in the US, but how did that kind of shape your, maybe what school you picked or the friends you made? How did that affect your daily life as a kid to have that in your home and for you to experience that at a young age?
Yeah, I would say that experience definitely brought into my mind. And also planted a seed in my heart that I want to, learn other culture. I want to go to other countries, to explore more things. That's why I think after graduation in college, I feel it's the time, and I want to, you know, go to other countries. And obviously, I think America, it's the top choice. And I want to know a different world. And in terms of daily life, I would say, I never tried sushi or sashimi before the trip. And I mean, now sushi and sashimi have become my favorite food since then.
Oh, that is so fun. When you came over to the US and then now it's like another layer of a different culture, how did that affect your daily life? Were there moments where you had to like pause and rethink and relearn? What would that look like in the daily life of coming to a new culture? What were the challenges? What were the frustrations? What were the things that you liked that changed in your daily life?
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, so I would say, so when I first came here, especially in the first couple of years, I think I always watch, what other people are doing, learning how people, greeting here, the small talks, right? How, people talk to each other, what people eat, even, what people would love to do in the spare time. And I tried to join, at that time when I was in USC, I tried to join as many activities as possible, just, want to be involved. And I think after I moved to Boston, and now I just want to share a little bit, but it maybe not be challenges, but definitely something I want to pay more attention to.
Mhm.
So my 5-year-old daughter, Aria, she would always, share with me that she said hello to our neighbors in the building, and she would tell me that she played together with some other kids in the playground who speak English, and she would kind of emphasize on those people who speak English, and she kind of feel proud of having those interaction of people who speak English. That kind of brought to my attention like why she want to emphasize that. So I had a like a discussion with one of my friends who has an older child than mine, and she told me that her son had a similar situation, and also her son had a time that her son does did not want to speak Mandarin, speak Chinese anymore. But luckily, at the school started to offer second language courses, and the teacher told them that you should be proud of your ability in speaking another language, and that helped a lot. So my friend's son, he start to even teach his friends how to speak Mandarin, some simple words. And I think my point, of sharing these will be start to think about how my kid will fit in the community, will fit in this, this country with different cultural backgrounds. I mean, like, not just to speak English, right? I mean, people speak, Spanish, speak Italian. I mean, in the United States, people, with diverse backgrounds, and how my kid can, contribute to the whole community, and how, as a parent, what should I communicate with her daily to help her kind of understand or to fit in this community. I would say this is something that's highly related to my daily life,
Mhm.
and I will also I'm still learning on that. Yeah.
Yeah, that is such a neat perspective because here I was thinking like your perspective would be from your past experiences, but your past experiences led to you now your future that's to come is that you want to instill and connect culture to your own kids. And it's almost like you're kind of in the same shoes as some of our host families that they are having a child in their home and they want to connect different cultures that are new, but that also could be feeling a different way. So I feel like although this is your position in the company, but you also are kind of walking through the same life as them of trying to connect cultures. What has something that has really worked for you, or maybe something that you're trying to figure out if it will work, to do that within your own home?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, so in my own home, I would say, we celebrate holidays and celebrate both, holidays here and also from China. And I think, talking to people in the communities, especially to my neighbors, when I had my second child, my neighbor also gave me a book. The title is "We Are the Same, We Are Different." So basically, you know, um, in the book there are a lot of pictures. Actually, it's for kids, but basically, the point is that we have eyes, nose, mouths, ears, but maybe the color is different, maybe the shape is different, but the function is the same. Um, so I just feel very warmed when I receive this gift. I just feel my neighbor also want to get to know us and also want to kind of encourage us to communicate with them, and then let us know that we can be connected, and it doesn't matter if we have different color or different, or we speak different languages. um, and I mean, for my kids, I always read books to them. And my daughter right now, she's a big fan of the books Piggy and Gerald the Elephant. And it's very humorous, and I think it's also one type of the American humor. And I took her to Disney World, and now, the Small World is her favorite song. She wants to know these things. And, in her school, teacher also, taught 7 continents that she sang a lot recently. So I think, with those daily interactions, both in the community, in the schools, um, it's a great connection. Yeah. And gradually, I think we'll learn from each other more. Yes, through those interactions, those daily conversations.
Yeah, it's such a great reminder that we're not expected to do this alone, and we don't have to. So if there are neighbors or people in your community that can connect and to show you how to connect culture, use the people, but then also like resources like books, even a children's books. I think I
Right.
learn the most when it comes to something that's so simple. We don't have to make things complicated, because really we're all I love it. We're all the same, but we're different. And we want things communicated in easy and simplified ways. It doesn't have to be harder than we make it. So even if you have a teenager in your home, I know some of the students come over and they're pretty young too. Having a resource that is simple that you can explain, um, whether it be a resource to help them navigate what an American home looks like, the bathroom, the living room, anything like that, that is a good thing to use. And you're not alone. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later too, of how Cambridge Care can provide some of those resources to you. But I think that, Shasha, thank you for reminding, like, even in your own home, you are using resources because you have to, because we're not doing this alone. The last question for you, Shasha, would be, what advice do you have for host families and natural parents to connect cultures in their home, or maybe any type of advice or something that you want to leave them with?
Okay, that's a good question. Yeah. Well, I think I will just talk about some tips maybe for host families.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, I know it's not easy, for our host families to open your home, right, to our international students. I think, this is something definitely you have courage, and especially, I mean, to hosting a student, they never traveled abroad, it might be their first time, right? So a couple of things that I can think of is that if you're hosting a student, the first time, definitely speak slowly, especially when the student just arrived at your home. She maybe needs some time to kind of process a different language. And always ask them open-ended questions. And if they share anything, if you don't quite understand at first, definitely ask for clarifications. And I will also, invite them to family activities and play games together. And I also know that sometimes, right, our student will say no, or maybe a little bit shy. Don't be offended if they say no in the first couple of times. The chances are very likely that they are not ready yet. Just be flexible and give some time to our student for them to adjust. Once they are ready, they are prepared, I think they will be able to join you with any activities. I would say for Chinese student, actually Chinese people, we use cell phone a lot, like a lot. Like everybody in China, if you go there, everybody is like walking or staring at phone. So if our student are kind of checking phone in front of you, also do not be offended. Most of the time they are Googling, like maybe check on the words, the pronunciations or the meanings, or try to search or try to find the right word to express their ideas. Yeah. And I would say, make them feel welcome, celebrate their holidays and traditions, and also introduce, your own traditions, celebrate birthday together. And can also, kind of listen to music, right? I think music has no boundaries. And, go to visit some museums, just to create some common topics. Yeah, I think by doing that, we can understand each other's values, beliefs gradually. And I also understand that our natural parents, they will definitely appreciate that, for all your care. And a lot of the natural parents will welcome our host families if you have the opportunity, travel back to our student hometown, and they will be be your tour guide. Yeah, so that's just a couple of my cents. Yeah.
Yes, so good. I was mentally writing everything down. I don't have a host student, but if I ever do, those are such good things. Shasha, thank you for sharing your history, your experience, your wisdom. Your voice is so nurturing. I could literally listen to it all day. It is a nurturing voice. You can tell that you really do care about cultural connection and making your family and our students feel more at home. So we definitely appreciate you for being here. If anyone ever has any questions for Shasha, feel free to send us an email your way, and we can get you connected to Shasha, and she can answer anything for you. So thank you, Shasha. As we move on, we have one last conversation. I really wanted to have this conversation because I think it's the flip version of connecting cultures. It's with Matthew Tilley, our host retention manager here at Cambridge. Some of our host families, you might have talked to him pretty often, but I'm going to let him introduce himself and his type of cultural exchange that he has been through, because I think he has a really neat perspective, which makes him really really wise and also really perfect for his job because he understands it. So Matt, what's going on? Are you there?
I'm here. Those are tough acts to follow, but I will surely try my best.
You'll
So
do
my
great.
name is Matthew. I've been with Cambridge now for about 6 years. And before that, I lived in Seoul, South Korea. I was there for about 5 years. I originally went there because I had graduated college during the recession in like 2009. And it was just hard to find something that I was passionate about. I had a job, I didn't really love. And I had a friend in college who was teaching in Korea, and she kind of said, "Why don't you go to Korea?" I honestly didn't really know much about Korea. Korea wasn't as popular as it is now, right? Korea is all over the media. But yeah, so I just packed my bags, and 6 months later, I hopped on a plane. I only knew a couple people in Korea, and I'd never really left home. Really, at that point, I grew up in Riverside, California, and I went to college across the street from my high school, which my high school was also my middle school. So I lived on campus at my college, so I was like in that little area for a long, long time, and I just had the itch to go somewhere else and try something new. So I went to Korea, and really at first it was just for 1 year. It was only going to be 1 year, make a little money, maybe the economy would get a little bit better, and then I'll come back. And then I ended up meeting someone, met my wife, and then I kept telling her 1 more year. And then that ended up being 5 years. My daughter was born there as well too. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. That's how I kind of got into this role. I had taught for so long in Korea, but I didn't really want to teach anymore. And I was looking for other ways where I could still work in education, but in a different role. So Cambridge really gives me that opportunity.
Totally. For living in Korea, how did you adjust yourself to a new country?
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting. I see a lot of students when they first come here, and I think naturally we stick to what feels comfortable for us, right?
Mhm.
Like if you notice at schools, a lot of the Korean students stick together, a lot of the Chinese students stick together. I remember one school that I used to work with, there was like a group of Chinese students, and they were all together, at lunchtime, and they were sticking together. And I was like, oh, come on, you need the real experience. But then I think back to my experience, I did the same exact thing that they did, right? I worked with a lot of Americans, and so we did a lot of like American things, ate American food, and so it was really like I was in Korea, but I was like in this bubble, like this American bubble. And then one day I had the opportunity. My friend was volunteering, and she asked if I wanted to take over for her as she was leaving the country. So I decided to do that. I volunteered at a local community center with a group of older Korean people of all different ages. Some were as old as like 90, and then we had young parents as well too. And they just wanted to really, they knew English. They just wanted to practice their English. And so I would come once a week and kind of just sit around, and we'd talk, we'd read articles, and then just kind of just talk. And then through that, I got to learn so much more about the Korean culture. They were very gracious, and they would take me out to restaurants, and they would take me to cultural events, and have me spend time with their family and things like that. And that experience like really changed, I think, my whole experience, because I got out of that bubble I was living in, and got out of my comfort zone, and had new foods and tried different things. So yeah, that was really for me, just getting out of my comfort zone. Volunteering like helped a lot, and then after that, I tried to experience something new like each week. Like, and it seems kind of silly, but a lot of people that come to Korea to teach, they really come for work. Like a lot of our students too, they come, for the education. Maybe the cultural side is kind of on the bottom, right? And I definitely fit that mode too. But when I realized I was doing it wrong, I tried to be more active in experiencing new things. So like on the weekends, I try to go to museums and different things like that, try different restaurants, and just learn more and be more involved in the culture.
You are living proof of the things that we tell our students to do, that it works.
Yes.
It's good.
Yeah.
What is something about Korean culture you wish you knew before living there?
Oh, there's so many things.
Just name a couple.
I think one kind of silly, it's kind of silly to think about, but I live in Texas, and before I came to Korea, I was in Texas, and we have a lot of space, and personal space is a very important thing. And I had never really lived in a big city like Seoul, and it was really big, really crowded. On the subways, people would bump into me, and I would get kind of like, like if that happens in the USA, if someone bumps into you, it's not a normal thing, but there it's like kind of expected. So you bump into each other, no big deal. Or people don't open doors as much as they do here. We're like, that opening a door is such an important thing in the USA, right? So that was like kind of hard for me to get used to, but because it was so different from what I was used to. And then same thing, like words that we use aren't used as much there too. So I was a little surprised. Like please is not like something a lot of other countries use as much as we do.
Mhm.
And I can see sometimes it causes problems with like students as well. But they say it in other ways. So those are just some little things that I kind of was surprised about.
Is there anything from Korean culture for your last question that you use in your everyday life now? I mean, obviously you're married, your wife is Korean, your daughter is Korean, so I'm sure there's a ton. But is there anything specific?
Yeah. One another thing I was kind of surprised about too is the uh, way they show respect to people that are older. Not even just someone who's a lot older, but there's like so many different words for different things. Like how to say hello. Like when you say hello, there's a different way to say hello
Wow.
for like different ages and different groups, right? Like a really respectful hello is "안녕 하십니까," and that's like for someone you really respect. And then there's like hello, you'd say with a friend like "ani," "안녕." So I think I try to be more careful with my words and like not just say hey yo hello. I try to follow that, and then I think just being more mindful of age. That's a really big thing in Korea. Even if you're a couple years older, like if you have an older friend, that's a boy, you'd call them like hyung, which is like an older brother. So I just try to be more mindful of that and try to show respect.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that. As you were talking about it, I was like, I could totally hear myself being like, yo. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, oh no, that's totally different from their culture.
I
Um,
I do the same thing. Like I sometimes have to catch myself like in emails,
yeah.
right? So
Well, thank you for sharing with us your experiences and showing us a little into what we teach our students. I know that you're going to go back to Korea in a few weeks for to visit some family and to be there. I'm sure you're excited. We're excited for you to be there as well. So thank you again for
yeah,
sharing with us tonight.